So welcome again to the podcast on grief. I am Pratik and I have my first guest and also co-host Dr. Gita Narahari with me.
Hello, Pratik.
I thought it would be a great idea to start with you because I know about your grief. I have known the family for some time and it has always been interesting that being a psychologist, how you have handled grief. Um the question I would like to start with, and it might be very direct, might be triggering for some people, but what happened? What is the biggest grief you have faced in life?
Okay. So I lost my parents. Losing my mother, and I had 3 days of time to prepare. So she went into operation. Her operation was not successful. She went in for bypass surgery, and doctor said it is a risky surgery. As a daughter, I had to sign the, I have no objection, and it is risky part. So when she didn't regain consciousness after the surgery, that is when doctor said that it's not looking good. So it's not looking good. As a child, you don't think that it is going to be the ultimate loss. So you think that okay, one might get up. So doctor is trying to indicate. I just realized that I was in the first part of denial. So doctor was trying to tell that if you have some brothers or so my brothers were in US of A at that time. So doctors were telling, why didn't you call your siblings? So I was like, oh, they're very far away. I don't want to trouble them. So I had indications, but I was in denial and I was not actually totally accepting that something, the ultimate loss can happen. So I was thinking that somehow there will be a miracle. So I was bargaining. So and also when finally they told me that she is no more, and that was really shocking, because I thought that I'll take her home, and I had prepared her room, and I was thinking that even if it takes months for me to take care of her, because I have a very good family, and my husband is also very supportive and very caring of my mother, my parents. So I was thinking it is very easy for me to handle everything. But the part that she did not come out of the operation, and I had 3 days to prepare. And more than me, my brothers suffered because they were not at ground zero. So they were thinking that somehow it is being handled. So they were all the more shocked because they're in some other country, and for them it was a bigger shocker. So they had to come all the way. And all of a sudden, when my brothers were coming from grieving part, I suddenly become a manager part. My grieving took a backseat because I had to organize where would they stay, how would they come, what will be comfortable for them, how should we get all the rituals done. So I came into the manager mode. So my grieving took a little bit longer because I was not. One has to. The most important part of grieving is to completely feel the sadness and the loss and the loneliness. At the same time, having the social support that whenever I want to talk to, I should be having people around me. So that is the important part of our rituals, which are for 13 days because they are relatives.
Right.
So when one wants to connect, there should be people around. So, but it so happened that when I was in that manager mode, so I was feeling like, oh wow, it's such a big loss, and I'm handling it so well, and I'm not tearing up. So I must be very strong. That's what. So being a psychologist, also I did not handle my grief very well. So actually, when you are an expert, you know the theory better. But when it happens to you, you are as vulnerable as any person. Though I knew
Right.
the stages of grief, I was not going through them properly. I was going on bargaining that they shouldn't have happened, or I should have got the surgery done in Hyderabad. I belong to Hyderabad. So people also indirectly kept bargaining with me that was it a good decision to get the operation done in Bhopal. So I was stuck at the bargaining stage. So I realized that people get stuck at some or the other stage. So I don't blame other people because they have no knowledge that they're being stuck. Me being a psychologist, I knew I was stuck. So it was easier for me to come out of the stage. And the helplessness, I could find the helplessness because my relatives were also questioning my decisions, and as to why one of my brothers were not there with me. So there are so many questions. One was feeling helpless, and I could understand that nobody could foresee that this would end in 3 days. So she went into the operation room on Thursday, and she didn't come out on Saturday, and Saturday she passed away. So I had just 3 days of time, but I was more than me. I was feeling for my brothers who were far away, and they were praying, and finally just one phone call. I made a phone call that she's no more, and they were just shocked. So for me, thinking how shocked they would be, helped me cope up that okay, at least I saw her in those last minutes. For them it was like my brothers had not seen her for quite few months, so that was tough.
So we're talking about the loss of a parent, which is in terms of sheer probability, most of us would experience that.
Correct.
Thankfully most of us experience it very late in life. Sometimes it is very early, like in your case. Sometimes it is very, very early, like I faced in my case.
You went through tough time in your early 20s.
Right. But the whole gist I got out of what you said is that no one's ready. No one's ready to handle grief at any stage.
Absolutely. My mom was 70. I was not ready.
Right.
So I think no one is ready to lose a parent, and it is tough at any stage.
So when you said that it was 3 days, and it was, I would say it was swift. The loss was swift. And I'm sorry if I'm crossing any boundaries or I'm being a bit too cutthroat about the language. But then is a swifter loss better? Because there are people who have long-term ailments. There are people who have seen their parents go with long-term ailments. You would have known people like that.
Yes.
Do you think grief is shorter or smaller when it is a swifter loss, but it keeps recurring because you did not have the time to prepare for that grief?
Absolutely.
Versus when you already have prepared for it for 6-8 months and you know that some person is going to go away, it's just a matter of time.
A very good question, because when there is a terminal illness, one is working for it, one is trying all the options, alternate medicine, one is trying all different kinds of medicine, and if that is not working, then slowly one is accepting that I have to let go. But here we did not have time to try anything alternate, let alone try. So there are cases where, like in your case, there was no trying. It just happened. So there was not even 3 minutes. There was not even 3 minutes of a shock absorption time. At least I got 3 days, but this was like very instantaneous. So people in terminal illness, sometimes they hope that some miracle will happen. So they are mostly they are stuck in the helplessness stage that why didn't the miracle happen? I did this puja, I did this havan, something should have worked out, and I wore this ring, and I changed my name to that. I changed the vastu of the house. I changed the color of my vehicle because somebody told. So people are trying to do everything possible in medicine, outside medicine, and trying to wait for a miracle. And when miracle is not happening in terminal illness, then because they have been through the process at various stages, so the bargaining stage was really long. Hence the helplessness stage is shorter, which takes them closer to acceptance in a much better way. They are rather than in a shockers or in instant accidents or in places where there are not many days of time given. So what happens is it keeps relapsing. So you feel you have accepted, you are over it, and suddenly one fine day you feel like somebody is in the other room. You forget that because it's happened so instantaneously. You forget that they are no longer there. So one fine day somebody might get up and they might be calling out their parents' name, thinking that they are in the other room, because it was so sudden that it has not moved to acceptance stage in our subconscious.
Right. So, did you think about grief earlier before you had experienced your parents' loss? Did you ever think about grief very consciously? Because I hadn't. I had never thought about grief that way. I had seen my grandparents pass away, but it was always like a distant thing to me, because it is not, I am not directly their child, and they are old, and somehow it is a more acceptable thing to lose a grandparent because you have heard about it, you have seen it in movies. So for me, I did not expect grief per se in my life, and I think grief hits you the hardest when you don't expect it, and which is most of the time.
Absolutely.
So did you think about it earlier?
See, earlier as a psychologist, I had given some talk shows. I had given a talk on grief, So people wanted to know grief. So there was some institute. So I spoke about grief in a very dispassionate way and very indifferent to it, stages of grief. So that was because one wanted to know about this. So that time I had not consciously thought about it. But when one went through it, I realized that one goes through all the stages. Even if somebody is able to accept in 13 days or in 130 days or in a year or 3 years, one goes through the stages. Some move through some stages faster, some get stuck in some stages, and the acceptance goes closer. So some are in denial for years. So some are in denial for days. So some people are in the anxious state for a very long time. They are frustrated. They always feel I should have spent more time when I had the chance. So some people are stuck in the guilt phase. So I'm guilty of not spending enough time. I should have been out there with them. And even being in the same house, I was not there, or being in the same country, I did not travel often. I should have traveled often. So one moves through shame, guilt. So it is very difficult. In my case, at least I had this feeling. I realized that I could see her in the last minute, even before going to the OT, after she came out of the OT. So I lost my father in 2020 during COVID, but he didn't have COVID. He had passed from cardiac arrest. But I had met him just 15 days before that. So that also I felt at least I had seen him 15 days ago. So some people, if they haven't met their parents and they lost an important person in their life and they hadn't met them for months or years, then the guilt stage, they would be stuck in the guilt stage. So they wouldn't move past the guilt stage. So it would take years for them to overcome the guilt. Some people feel the shame. Oh, I've been a bad son, bad daughter, I've been a bad wife, or bad mother. So the shame phase also doesn't allow you to move to acceptance, like the loss happened. So in some cases where it is a loss of a patriot, or in that case, because there is pride, the stages of grief are the same, but because there is pride attached for the country, for the soul, the pain is insufferable, and the amount of sadness, loneliness, vacuum that any grieving person suffers is huge, and it is the maximum that they can endure. But it is because there is no guilt, shame or guilt involved. So that shame and guilt phase, people who have pride, they don't get stuck in that phase. So one takes pride. So it might be difficult to accept that the person is not there. But in places where you have honor attached to it.
So you basically exchange something.
You exchange something.
For the person. Again, understanding as a layman.
Yes.
But there is some compensation.
There's some compensation.
To it. So for me, I used to think about grief as a third party incident always. That it is something that happens to people other than myself. And it would never happen to me. And I think that is how most people generally, unless they have experienced it, think about grief. They think that it is happening to a third person. Like I remember in school, one of the kids did not have a parent. And we could not empathize. We always thought that, this is an anomaly. Doesn't happen very frequently. And of course wouldn't happen to me. That thought often did not occur. So, do you think most people think like this when it comes to grief?
Absolutely.
That it will not happen to me, it is happening to a third party?
Absolutely, because to be prepared also requires a lot of touch with reality, and reality is very painful. So we want to avoid so much of reality and try to be in the pleasant emotions. So we try to avoid the unpleasant emotions of sadness. So one always thinks that I am going to be immune from unpleasant emotions, because it helps me go through each day thinking that my day is going to be pleasant. Thinking that there might be unpleasant incidents in my life, I may not be able to function with a smile on my face. So it helps me to think that certain things I am immune from. And maybe it happened to them, and as you said, it is an anomaly and it may not happen to others. So I think that is what most people think, unless it happens to them, because then it helps them to get through the day. Because if people think that today might be the most saddest part of my life, one cannot go about the day. One would be checking every hour, every minute, every second, because this is going to be the saddest part of my life or my day, so I'm going to be very careful and very cautious, then I can't move. So hence it helps to know that okay, certain things maybe I am immune to. So it is a kind of a coping mechanism to think that certain things won't affect me or certain things won't happen to me. But people do face them every day, and it is difficult to get through it because they don't talk to people, and people are there for 13 days and again they disperse. They're all busy in their lives, and when you want to talk to, there is nobody. So the creative people, what they do, I've seen many creative people, they take to music, or they take a sabbatical from their job and they're doing something more creative and more humbling, or they get a pet. Having a pet actually really helps you reconnect because unconditional love, and they're always following you everywhere. So there is a sense of there is somebody with me. So in many countries, pet therapy works wonderful when one is grieving, because to see a new life, because one doesn't want to eat, drink, and sleep properly. So, but when you have another creature, you have to care for. So you have to feed the pet. So one would also feel responsible. So otherwise, one keeps thinking that what is the purpose of my life, and what should I consider next, or should I consider anything next at all or not. So, but when you have another living being to care for, so it helps. So music therapy helps, gardening, any activity. So anything that helps you channelize your sadness into some activity outside, because actually keeping it inside is what is going to not help grieving. So grief has to be expressed. Otherwise, it is going to be impressed inside in a negative way. So it has to be not impressed inside, it has to be expressed outside.
So what was this activity for you? As you said, I know you have always had pets. What was this activity, or a number of activities for you that were your outlets?
So I like music a lot. So I studied a lot about rag therapy, which rags work for which time of the day, which season, mood and day, seasons also. So I got very interested in various ragas. So I was also looking at raga therapy, and not much of scientific research is there, but there is scientific research to help me feel good, that ragas do help in mood alleviation, like rag Anand Bhairavi. Any songs, there's many Bollywood songs based on rag Yaman, rag Kalyan. So when you hear those songs, you feel good. And when you hear a rag Anand Bhairavi based songs, then you feel upbeat. So there are certain ragas which make you feel patriotic. So there are ragas which make you feel bhakti. So my outlet was researching and studying about ragas and music, listening to lots of classical music, because classical music is not easy to understand. So I don't understand. I learned a little when I was a kid, but the thing is that when something is difficult and something is in rag, so I just disconnect from it and I go into my thoughts. So there is a constant background that I'm trying to ignore and do something else. So it helps to have something to ignore. So there was no vacuum. You have to have something to ignore and to do something else. So this rag in the background helped me not to think of the music and to do something else. Otherwise, if there is nothing playing in the background, you actually just sit still. So you got to be doing something like for me, the difficult ragas, because I'm not a practicing classical singer. So the difficult ragas helped me, like, okay, that is so tough, that is so distant, and that is so intense. I don't want to do anything so intense and so distant. So I was moving away from something. The point of grieving is not to stay where you are. So whenever you're doing an activity, you are trying to move away from it, or move with it, or move along with it. The movement is what helps grieving.
That's a very interesting way to put it, that you have to move forward, or wherever you have to move, you just have to move the setting you are in.
Yes.
And I think personally I felt that a major part was played by people around me, both friends and family, and both positive and negative. So how did you experience support or non-support from family and friends, and how did it help you either cope or not cope with your grief?
I think some people didn't help the coping well, and anybody who is grieving can relate to the list of people. And I think whenever one grieves, one becomes wiser because one comes to know the true colors of people, and one comes to know who is on your side and who was faking it all along. So I think grief makes you wiser. Though it makes you lonelier, it makes you feel sadder, and you feel you're all by yourself. The biggest, the toughest part of grief is to acknowledge that you are on your own. That is the toughest part. The sooner we realize that now we are on our own, the sooner the acceptance takes place. So if people are not able to accept that we are on our own, so there will be people who might take advantage because they know that one cannot function on their own, so one is dependent on them. So if they are positive people, it is enhancing, and it is it helps in movement forward towards acceptance. But if they are negative people, they might take advantage and shield facts from people who are grieving and taking advantage of their sensitive vulnerabilities. So I had both the experiences, but it made me more wiser and more realistic. So any kind of idealism or any kind of unrealistic aspects of the world or of people that I had, I have greater clarity after grief 1 and grief 2. So within 2 years, I think I became more wiser. Otherwise, I was having a general view of an ideal view of life. Now I think I have a practical view of life.
And anything particular without revealing any details, but can you share some instance or anecdote that happened, either in the positive or negative, that you think was a big impact on you?
Okay, so the positive thing was like my husband. He was the one who took care of all our relatives because we belong to my parents stay in Hyderabad, but because my mother passed away in Bhopal, we did the last rites in Bhopal, and all our relatives came to Bhopal, and because my brothers also came down from US to Bhopal, so we did everything here, and we took the ashes to Narmada ji. So when my father passed away, my brothers said that because we put mama in Narmada ji, mama's ashes in Narmada ji, we'll also put papa's there. So that was the positive part, that we had a kind of a feeling that both of them are together, and so that's the best part. And the negative part is like people were always telling us like you could have done better, or you should not have taken to this hospital, you should have taken to that hospital, and the thing is that you should have consulted a better doctor, or why didn't you go to a better institute in Delhi. So these things, it somehow seemed like they questioned our intentions to save the person. So that was a little hurting, because at ground zero, when one is doing things, one doesn't want any appreciation, but one wants trust. So at some point of time, it seemed like they had mistrust that I was doing in the best interest to save the person. That was very hurting, actually.
Right, and thank you for sharing that. You being an expert in the field of psychology, do you think people grieving need professional help all the time, or self-help is more critical while dealing with one's own grief? As you said, because it's a very personal journey, I would like to have your take on it.
Okay. So I think we need professional help in case if we don't have enough social support, in case if we don't have enough mental tools, and whenever we lose an important person, the mental tools always seem to fall short of the necessary amount. So having a professional help helps you deal with it and move through stages faster, because when somebody tells you, oh, you're stuck in this stage, the awareness creates a journey. But as soon as we are aware that we are going in a wrong direction, we can take a U-turn and we can take the other direction also. But if we don't know that we are traveling wrong, we keep on traveling wrong, and we never reach acceptance. So when you take professional help, you know that how you are traveling, whether you're traveling right or whether you're traveling too heavy with too much emotional burden. So professional helps you travel faster to acceptance, because from acceptance again a new journey has to begin. You have to restart life, because some people may give up their job, give up looking after themselves and their families. They might give up some responsibilities. They may not feel capable of handling them all. So one needs to understand that life moves on, and our parents or people who had trust in us expect us to move forward. So if that journey is not happening, it is important that you take professional help, so that if you're stuck in a stage, the awareness created by such professional therapy, you would come out of it easily. Otherwise one would stay in a stage for a longer time and never complete the journey. So if one never completes the journey, what happens? The friends and families, relatives, they all get very irritated, very annoyed. वो तो एक ही टॉपिक पे बात करता है, वो टॉपिक मत बात करना, फिर 2 घंटे that person gets involved. So you see that people distance themselves, and you won't have deeper social connections, which are very important to overcome. So you need to know how to overcome. Hence the journey is very important. Right. Professional help is required, because people have thinking heads, and thinking always causes overthinking. So so when we do overthinking, when we overspeed, then it's likely that the car is not in our control. So it is very important that we travel at average speed, which is safer. So mental safety. So what we are talking is, if you don't grieve properly, psychological safety is at risk. The whole point of doing this podcast, Pratik, it is wonderful that people are at psychologically unsafe spaces, and they might stay in those psychological unsafe spaces for a long span of time when they should be thriving. If somebody finds a way that, okay, there is a possibility of thriving, one need not be stuck, that is best. So therapy, I feel, is required.
And did you take any professional help yourself?
So actually I had my psychological friends, and so I was actually talking to my other psychological friends.
So in some sense you
did take help. Yes, I did take help. Right. So I did take professional help, because all my friends, bunch of my classmates, everybody is psychologists. Obviously. So we were always there. So we were doing this Zoom meetings every second Saturday night, and it would go on. It would actually be initially for 1 hour, but in order to make you feel good, initially it would be all like, they would remember my parents, how they felt when they used to come home, and how warm they are. It would always start with that. But you won't believe, Pratik, when it ended, it used to be hilarious. We used to be laughing, and it used to end on a teary note, but because of the laughter. Right. So that always helped me feel good, and I used to look forward to these second Saturday night meetings with my friends. And because they were all a bunch of professionals, they really knew how to do it well, and they did it really well. I think we did it for 6 months, and it really helped me.
That's actually a very nice way to do it. I tell people, because I have done it, not with grief, but now I'm realizing it could be done with a loss or grief also. I tell people that if you're pursuing a project and you have other issues coming up, let's say I speak most often about UPSC preparation. So I tell people that whenever you realize, oh, घर में ये काम है, mother की health खराब है, financial something you have to do, you make a list of things that you need to think about. Schedule 1 hour in the week where you have to get angry about those things, or speak to somebody and just vent yourself out.
That's a good thing.
Do that in that 1 hour and then get back to studies. That is the easiest way to slot it.
Absolutely.
Slot your anger. So I think
otherwise it will spill whole day, and it will disturb your schedule.
It will keep recurring in your mind. So I think as you can slot anger, you can slot grief also.
Absolutely.
You have a Zoom call, talk to people whom you know can help you with it.
Yes.
In this case, you had colleagues.
Yes.
And I think it's an amazing way to deal with it. You connect with friends also, and of course you're getting pseudo professional help at the same time.
And also I had this advantage, I don't say it's an advantage, it's a bad advantage. So at the stage and age that I was, so some of my other friends were also losing either parents. So I had this pain company I knew they could relate to it, and how one would see a particular color and get all teared up. So they could relate to that kind of thing. So when other people can relate, it is instantly released. So when nobody relates, you hold it. So when I'm throwing a fireball and people are throwing it back, so I get burned. But when I'm throwing a fireball, other people are able to get it. So I am off it. So it was like a fireball which was too hot to handle. But when I threw it, the others could get it. So it was off me. So I was more at peace the more I threw it out. So the more I channelized, the more I let it out, the more easier it was. So but some people are not very vocal, expressive, so they write it in their diaries, they make poems, and they make documentaries, docuseries. They also I've seen recently one of my friend spoke to everybody who is her father's friend about what he thought about her father. So those then she compiled them. Then that was also kind of a creative thing, right, to ask people to give a recording and editing and putting a good song behind it. So I think that is also a very good way. It is also like what I did with music. So being involved, writing, researching, trying to do something. So trying to do something is very important. It need not be productive always.
And you faced 2 losses back to back. What do you think was the core of your strength to handle these losses? I mean, what was it inside you, and internal, nothing external, that helped you sail through it?
Okay. So I think I had a very strong, stable family. So, and very obedient children, and they could understand, and my husband who's very emotionally understanding. I think having one at a stage where your family is very understanding. So they made everything else easy. So they did not make things difficult for me. I am grieving about my parents, and here people are not relating, and they are saying, "Mama, आप एक ही चीज़ बार-बार बोल रहे हो." ऐसे they did not say. They understood it is tough. They understood that Mama was very connected, or my wife is very connected. So people not ridiculing you, not counting ki this you have told 100 times about Mama, this you have told 100 times about Nana ji. So those kind of things hurt. So when other people are a little empathetic and they understand that okay, one needs to talk about it to get over it. So I think my family, the stability and the way they had tolerance to my repetitive talk about my parents during those phases. I think one has to have I had a tolerant environment. That tolerant environment helped me only realize that have I been repeating, have I told this often? So I felt that okay, I'm over it.
I think the question was what internally was strong in you and not externally. I always think about family externally, but it is so nice to know that you are so well entwined with your family that you think of it as something internal to you. And I think everybody can learn from that a family should be so well balanced that it is not external of you, it is always something inside you. Talking of this, you have also written a book recently on your interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
That is incidentally your name also.
Yes.
What did Gita or its interpretation in any way help you to see some light at the end of the tunnel when it came to grief?
Oh yes. So because I read books and because I read the Gita, then it also said that the soul is always there, the body is not there. So that aspect is very important, that the soul is always there. So it is a great comforting thing that they are not over, they are not completely off the grid, they are around but we cannot see them. So that gives you a sense of comfort that they are blessing us always. So that aspect helped me a lot, that they are watching over me and they're going to bless me. So it's just that the body is not there. The soul changes clothes. So the soul will take on a new form. The same form is no more there. So that is kind of comforting, that it's not over. It's just that I don't have the eyes to see the soul, but I have a soul to feel the soul. So one needs to have the soul to feel the soul. The soul talk. So maybe soul talk when you do, I love you, mama. I keep saying on our birthdays or anniversaries. So I love you, papa. So I keep talking. The soul talk happens. Are you proud of me? Or did I do well? Those kinds. So I think if family is external and internal, one aspect in me, which I think, if you're talking of the personality trait kind of a factor, then one thing is I always have to complete what I start. So whether it is a degree, whether it is a book, so whether it is a movie which is not interesting, I have to complete it. Okay, so the aspect is I have to complete the process. So being a psychologist, I knew I had to take it to acceptance.
Right.
So the personality trait in me is to complete what I have started. So I had to complete it. So that aspect was very important, and it helped me in grieving, because knowing the theory part, I knew that my movement ends only at acceptance and nothing less than that. So if I was not making it to acceptance, so I knew that my journey is incomplete. So I had to complete my journey. So the incomplete part disturbs me. So I have to complete things. So if I start cooking a recipe, I cannot hand it over to my cook in between ki yahan se tum kar lena. So I will see through it, even if I am busy, that it is completed and it is switched off, because I don't want any surprises that I expected something and the outcome is something.
Right. So something I would like to jump back to is when you were talking about not consciously thinking about grief. Bhutan is supposed to be the happiest country in the world, and in Bhutanese culture, they are made to think about death thrice a day, just to be conscious of your death and to be present in the moment. The Stoic philosophy, and I've been reading up on Stoicism recently, they have a concept of memento mori, where they say that you can die any moment. And to have that consciousness itself will make you more alive in the moment. Do you think that kind of a practice is more on the negative side, or looking at negative side of things, or do you think it actually works?
Actually, it works, because it is a cultural aspect, and if it is a cultural aspect, it works. If we all together bring it into our lives and it's not a part of our culture, but if we strongly believe, we can make it part of our personal culture, because it's not a family culture or a community culture. But if it is a cultural thing, it definitely acts as a vaccination. So it acts as a vaccination against death, because if death happens, I am prepared for it. But if you don't have vaccination for it and you are attacked, you are all over the place looking for the medicine, then when the attack happened. So it is like they are having a vaccination for death by thinking about death 3 times in a day. So the shock, they will never be stuck in the shock phase, because they are not shocked, they are thinking of it 3 times a day. So and also they're thinking that if memento mori, I'm going to go now, so that means the denial is not there that the person won't be there or I won't be there. So 2 stages are easily crossed. So I think it helps crosses the stages easily. And also, yes, definitely, if you are vaccinated against something, you're more well prepared.
That's a wonderful way to put it. I think if you're vaccinated, then you're better prepared to handle it.
Yes.
My last question to you is, have you overcome your grief? And does one ever overcome their grief or sorrow?
I think I have overcome my grief, but I think 100% nobody can overcome their grief. There would be percentages of it left, and they will always remain. One cannot say that I am completely normal and I am okay without they being around. You remember them on festivals, on when you see other people having their parents, and I was feeling so bad that once I had this bad thought, how lucky they are that they still have their parents. Then I felt like, oh God, how can I think like that? Well, they are happy with their parents, then I should be happy for them. But there was an iota of envy in me. Like, they are so old and their parents are still alive, and they are so lucky. So in a way, I corrected myself, but there was this envy also in me that they are enjoying the company of their parents for such a long time, and I am not enjoying, I am not having their company. So being human being, I think you can never be completely be over it, but I think that is all right. Nobody gets anything in complete proportion, you know. You have a dream of a job, you have a dream of a car, you want the car to perform in a certain way, you want the job to fulfill you in certain way, but always there is a expectation and reality gap in all emotions. And so is in grief also. One cannot 100% meet with acceptance, but if you just touch acceptance, you're good to go. You don't have to grieve, you don't have to get complete 100% acceptance, because 4-star electronics also work, 3-star electronics also work, 5-star electronics also work. So the star rating, we are not bothered. It is still working. So we have to be working. So, but if we can increase this productivity or the rating, so that we are accepting it better, so our movement will be much better. Otherwise, there will be pockets of days when we are not associating with others, when we are all by ourselves. It has suddenly overcome us and we have cancelled an appointment. That is not correct.
Right.
You have to go through with your life, yet take it along with you, because it is a part of your emotion.
Like how I understand it is, it's like a scar that paint for a while, then it scabbed, then the new skin came on, and then only the scar remained. It has become a part of your body.
True.
You can see it once in a while, but it doesn't pain anymore. It just reminds you of a few things, and if you can remember them in a fonder way and not in a totally negative sense, so maybe it's all right to have that scar.
Those are warriors' medals, warrior scars, and that is very well put actually, because the scar is there. But if one wants to do plastic surgery and cover the scar, there is a scar on the heart.
Right.
The heart remembers. So you may cover it on the outside doing a plastic surgery, but the scar remains somewhere. It is never fully over. One can never fully overcome it, and when one is feeling like, why am I feeling this vacuum, the vacuum will remain. But if you feel the vacuum completely in the initial stages, the vacuum reduces. But if you deny that I'm all right, I've overcome, in a very short span without actually going through it, the vacuum just keeps getting bigger. So the sooner you grieve fully and completely, the vacuum becomes very small, and it's very easy to function with the gap.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr.
My
Gita,
pleasure.
to be the first guest on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
People who have watched till the end, I hope that there is something that comes out of this. It's a totally new thing that we are starting with. It's just to get the conversation going. And anything that you would like to get added into this format, please let us know.
And I think, Pratik, you've done a wonderful thing, because people are always talking about how to find more happiness, how to have better skin, or how to crack an exam. So, but there are a lot of podcasts out there on those topics, and these are those difficult parts that one doesn't get help. So one doesn't easily go to a therapist. So it is nice if one listens to others who are going through. One does not think that, am I not adjusting properly to grief, or am I all right? Am I sane? So all those self-doubt questions, they'll get cleared if one listens to other people and professionals speaking about it. So I think it's a wonderful new thought that you have come up with, and all the best with your podcast.
Thank you so much. And I think we'll have a email ID somewhere down in the link, where if any other question personal also comes up, so can be shot at us and we'll try our best to get back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So, the earlier video got cut short because the camera we were using stopped functioning. So this is the end of the video that we are coming back to you, so you can see us again. The conversation was great, so I would like to thank you again, Dr. Gita. And I think in the end, the agenda or the objective is just to share our stories, to get to know how people have dealt with their grief, and if at all somebody can learn from it, can understand certain aspect of their own grief, that will be the best possible outcome out of this. And I think we are still evolving in the format. I think this is the first episode, so I am also struggling to find out how it works. But we will have an email ID somewhere down there where you can post your questions, and we'll try to get back to you if you can't post them openly. And any last comments from your side?
I think, Pratik, I'm so amazed, and a young boy at your age is thinking of such topics which are not easily available for people struggling to get some support, because not everybody can get access to therapy. One does not have the luxury of time or the convenience of matching the time with the therapist. So one keeps searching when one is by oneself in their me time, looking for some kind of support. And if everybody on social media is posting their good times, so one has no help on social media in these aspects. So I think what you're doing is amazing. When people say good things about this generation, I definitely, you come on top of it all.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for those who have watched till the end, and see you all soon.